The sky darkened over every major city on Earth at precisely noon Greenwich Mean Time. Giant shadows fell across New York, Beijing, London, Moscow, and 100 other population centers as massive ships moved into position. They were like nothing humans had ever built, each one nearly 5 miles long with strange geometric patterns etched into dark metal hulls. Eric Fuller stood on the roof of the United Nations building, looking up with the rest of the emergency council. As commander of Earth's small fleet of interstellar ships, he had been called in immediately when the alien vessels were detected approaching from beyond Neptune's orbit. No one had expected visitors so soon after humanity had achieved faster-than-light travel only 3 years earlier. They're positioning themselves over major cities worldwide, said Admiral William Hayes, his voice steady despite the tension. But they haven't taken hostile action yet. Eric nodded, studying the nearest ship through high-powered binoculars. No weapons deployed that we can see, but the energy readings are off the charts. Olivia Martinez rushed through the roof access door clutching a tablet computer. Her dark hair was coming loose from its usual neat bun, and her eyes were wide with excitement despite the crisis. Commander Fuller, Admiral. I've got something, she said, slightly out of breath. They're broadcasting on multiple frequencies. It's a language unlike anything we've ever encountered, but I've been running it through the xenolinguistic algorithms I developed for our first contact protocols. Admiral Hayes turned to her. Can you translate it, Dr. Martinez? Partially. They're repeating the same message over and over. She tapped on her tablet. I think they're saying they want to talk. The room where they gathered 30 minutes later was filled with the world's highest-ranking military and political leaders. The President of the United States sat beside the Chinese Premier, the Russian President, and the Secretary General of the United Nations. Old rivalries were temporarily forgotten in the face of what could be humanity's greatest threat, or opportunity. Dr. Martinez stood before them, her translation software running on the large display screen. They called themselves the Draconid Imperium. They're a coalition of 7 advanced species that have been observing Earth for centuries. They've timed their arrival to coincide with our development of faster-than-light technology. Do they come in peace? Asked the Secretary General. Olivia hesitated. They haven't said exactly. They've requested a meeting with human representatives aboard their command ship. The room erupted in debate until Admiral Hayes raised his voice. We need to show strength and unity. Commander Fuller has the most experience with space operations, and Dr. Martinez understands their language better than anyone. I recommend we send them as our representatives, along with a small security team. 4 hours later, Eric Fuller stood in a shuttle bay of Earth's newest vessel, the Horizon. Dr. Martinez was checking her translation equipment one last time while 6 Marines in full combat gear tried not to look nervous. Remember, Eric told the team, we're diplomats first. No threatening moves. Follow my lead. The shuttle journey to the alien flagship took 20 minutes. As they approached, Eric could see that what had appeared as simple geometric patterns on the hull were actually intricate designs that seemed to pulse with energy. Their small craft was guided into a vast docking bay that could have held 100 similar shuttles. The air was breathable, according to their instruments, though it smelled faintly of cinnamon and ozone. When the shuttle door opened, they faced a delegation of tall reptilian beings with iridescent scales and vertical pupils. Behind them stood representatives of other species, some insectoid, others vaguely humanoid, but with distinct alien features. One of the reptilians stepped forward. It wore an ornate harness studded with what appeared to be technological devices rather than clothing. Welcome, it said in a voice that sounded like stones grinding together. Dr. Martinez's translator echoed the word in English a moment later. I am Zekthar, voice of the Imperium. Eric stepped forward and bowed slightly. I am Commander Eric Fuller of Earth. We come in peace and friendship. Zekthar's mouth opened in what might have been a smile, revealing rows of sharp teeth. Peace is available to those who understand their place in the cosmic order. They were led through corridors that seemed to shift and change as they walked, eventually arriving at a vast chamber with a view of Earth hanging in space below them. 7 thrones sat on a raised platform, each occupied by a different alien species. Zekthar took position below the thrones. You stand before the Council of Seven, the rulers of the Draconid Imperium, masters of 1,000 worlds across this spiral arm of the galaxy. Eric felt a chill run down his spine as Dr. Martinez whispered, "They're broadcasting this meeting to Earth. Everyone down there is watching this." Zekthar continued, "We have watched your species crawl from the mud, develop primitive tools, split the atom, and now reach for the stars. Your development has been interesting, chaotic, but determined. We appreciate your interest in our species," Eric said carefully. "We hope we can learn from each other and establish peaceful relations." A deep rumbling sound came from the aliens, which the translator identified as laughter. "Learn from each other? You misunderstand. We are not here as equals." The central throne's occupant, a massive version of Zekthar's species with black scales instead of green, spoke in a thunderous voice. "Humanity has reached the threshold where you might become either useful or troublesome. The Imperium does not tolerate troublesome species." Dr. Martinez's translator struggled with the complex speech, but the meaning became horrifyingly clear. "You have two choices," Zekthar explained. "Kneel before the Imperium, surrender all independent technological development, and serve as a client race. Your people will work for the greater glory of the Imperium. Or what?" Eric asked, though he already knew the answer, or face extinction. "Your world will be sterilized and repopulated with a more compliant species." The chamber fell silent except for the subtle hum of the massive ship. Eric looked at the faces of his team. Shock, fear, and anger reflected in their expressions. "How many other species have you given this choice?" Dr. Martinez asked suddenly. Zekthar seemed surprised by the question. 43 species serve the Imperium. 17 chose extinction." "And those who serve their slaves?" Eric asked. "They are contributors to the greatest civilization this galaxy has known." Zekthar replied smoothly. "They enjoy the protection and technology of the Imperium in exchange for their service." Eric straightened his shoulders. "Humanity has never responded well to threats." The black-scaled leader leaned forward. "It is not a threat. It is the natural order. The strong command. The weak obey. We require your answer in 30 Earth days," Zekthar said. "We will leave an observation force in orbit to monitor your planet and prevent any foolish attempts at resistance. The full might of the Imperium fleet will return for your answer." As they were escorted back to their shuttle, Dr. Martinez whispered to Eric, "Did you see the other species in their delegation, the smaller ones? They were afraid, not of us, but of their masters." Eric nodded grimly. "When we get back, tell Admiral Hayes I need to speak with him immediately. The Draconids have made a critical mistake." "What's that?" she asked. "They've given us time to prepare, and they've completely underestimated what humans do when backed into a corner." As their shuttle departed the alien flagship, emergency meetings were already being called in every nation on Earth. For the first time in human history, all borders and conflicts were forgotten in the face of an existential threat. The countdown had begun. 30 days to prepare for the most important decision in human history. But in secret chambers and hidden bunkers across the planet, humanity's leaders had already made their choice. They would not kneel. The massive underground facility beneath the Rocky Mountains buzzed with activity. 25 days had passed since the Draconid ultimatum. On the surface, it appeared that Earth was preparing to surrender. News broadcasts showed world leaders discussing the terms of submission. Construction crews built landing pads for alien ships. Humans walked with downcast eyes under the watchful sensors of Draconid observation drones. But 200 feet below ground, the real work happened. Dr. Alan Nichols hadn't slept more than 4 hours a night since the aliens arrived. His lab was cluttered with pieces of alien technology, small items captured or recovered from Draconid scout ships. The physicist rubbed his tired eyes and peered again at the data on his screen. "There," he whispered. "It has to be." He reached for the secure phone and dialed Admiral Hayes. "Sir, I've found it. Their shield frequency. It cycles in a predictable pattern every 7.3 seconds. In another section of the facility, Lieutenant Kate Bishop studied Draconid battle formations. Before the aliens came, she had been considered radical for her unconventional military theories. Now she was in charge of developing tactics against an enemy with superior technology. They always deploy in the same patterns, she explained to the team of pilots gathered around her. They've never faced serious resistance, so they've become predictable. Their ships are fastest when moving in straight lines. They struggle with rapid course changes. One of the pilots looked doubtful. But their weapons range and power will destroy us in a conventional fight, Kate finished for him. That's why we won't give them one. On the other side of the world, in a converted automotive factory outside Detroit, Gregory Parker directed a team of engineers. The factory floor was filled with ordinary Earth vehicles, school buses, garbage trucks, farm equipment, all being modified with strange new components. No, put the emitter inside the frame, he told a worker. They're scanning for weapons, signatures. This needs to read as normal Earth equipment until it's activated. Parker had been designing electric cars before the aliens came. Now he was turning everyday objects into weapons that the Draconids wouldn't recognize as threats until it was too late. High above Earth, on the main Draconid observation vessel, Commander Voshkal reviewed the latest reports from the surface. The human response was exactly as expected. Initial defiance giving way to resignation and preparation for servitude. Their primitive communications networks were filled with debate about how to best serve their new masters. Pathetic creatures, he remarked to his second-in-command. No different from the others. Bold until they understand their weakness, then quick to submit. Some of our scouts have reported unusual activity in remote areas, his officer noted. Voshkal dismissed the concern with a flick of his scaled hand. Last gestures of resistance. Deploy additional drones to those regions. The humans have primitive nuclear weapons that must be neutralized before the Imperial fleet returns. The officer bowed and left to carry out the orders, unaware that the humans had wanted those particular areas to draw attention. 5 days before the deadline, Admiral Hayes called Earth's Unified Defense Council to order. Representatives from every major nation gathered around a table that would have been unimaginable months earlier. American generals sat beside Russian admirals, Chinese commanders next to European officers. Status reports, Hayes demanded. Commander Fuller, recently returned from a covert mission, spoke first. The capture operation was successful. We have a Draconid scout ship intact and have extracted their communications protocols. Dr. Martinez added, We've learned that the Draconids have conquered dozens of star systems using the same approach. They believe their technological advantage makes them invincible. It almost does, Dr. Nichols said. But we've identified exploitable weaknesses in their shield systems and targeting arrays. Lieutenant Bishop unfolded a tactical display. We've developed and tested combat strategies that use their predictability against them. We can't match their firepower, but we can confuse and separate their forces. Gregory Parker stepped forward, with a tablet computer. My teams have converted thousands of civilian vehicles and devices into weapons. The Draconids won't recognize them as threats until they're activated. Admiral Hayes nodded grimly. What are our chances? The room fell silent. Finally, Commander Fuller spoke. Better than they think. They expect submission, not coordinated resistance. Surprise is our greatest weapon. Hayes stood up and looked at each person around the table. The Draconid fleet returns tomorrow to receive our answer. Every nation on Earth has voted. Our response is unanimous. The next day, the sky darkened again as dozens of massive Draconid ships emerged from faster-than-light travel. They took position around Earth, weapon systems ready but inactive. They expected a simple surrender ceremony. On the bridge of the Imperial vessel, Commander Voshkal received the transmission from Earth. The planet's leaders requested permission to send representatives to formally submit to Draconid rule. Permission granted, Voshkal said, pleased with how smoothly this conquest was proceeding. They may approach. 20 Earth shuttles launched from the surface. They appeared to be unarmed diplomatic vessels according to Draconid scans. The alien commander ordered the docking bay open to receive them. What the Draconids didn't know was that each shuttle carried Lieutenant Bishop's elite strike teams. The moment they landed in the docking bay, the real plan began. Simultaneously across Earth, every major city activated Parker's converted vehicles. School buses, now containing advanced jamming technology developed from Dr. Nichols's research, disrupted Draconid communications. Garbage trucks equipped with electromagnetic pulse generators knocked out surveillance drones. Farm tractors with hidden missile launchers targeted the smaller Draconid ships in low orbit. On the Imperial flagship, alarms blared as Bishop's teams deployed from the shuttles, using captured Draconid weapons against their creators. The aliens were caught completely unprepared for an attack inside their own ship. Commander Fuller led the main strike team toward the bridge. Remember, capture the command center intact. We need their navigation data. Back on Earth, Admiral Hayes watched the coordinated attack unfold on tactical displays. Thousands of small craft, everything from modified jet fighters to converted crop dusters, launched from hidden bases. They flew in chaotic patterns that confused Draconid targeting systems, just as Lieutenant Bishop had planned. Dr. Martinez stood beside Hayes, monitoring alien communications. "They're panicking," she reported. "They keep asking each other how this is possible. They can't believe we're fighting back." A transmission from Commander Fuller came through. His face appeared on screen, a cut bleeding above his eye but a smile on his face. Behind him, the Draconid bridge was secured. Alien. Crew members disarmed and contained. "Admiral, the flagship is ours. Their commander is captured." Hayes nodded. "Send our message." Fuller turned to Voshkal, who was being held by 2 human Marines. "Your turn to listen." He activated the ship's communication system, broadcasting, "To every Draconid vessel in orbit." Admiral Hayes's face appeared on screens throughout the alien fleet. "Attention, Draconid forces. This is Admiral William Hayes of Earth's Unified Defense. You came to our world and told us to kneel or die. We have a different answer." He leaned forward, his expression hard. "Leave our solar system immediately and tell your Imperium. Earth is not for conquest. Any future aggression against us will be met with the same response. We will not kneel. We will not serve. And if forced to fight, we will burn your worlds to ash." Across Earth, humans looked up at the sky and waited to see if they would live or die. The future of their species hung in the balance, and the stars held their breath. The Draconid ships hung in Earth's orbit, weapons primed but not firing. 6 hours had passed since Admiral Hayes delivered humanity's response. The standoff stretched nerves to breaking point in command centers across the planet. "They're communicating, with each other but not with us," said Professor Ben Miller. The former linguistics professor now headed Earth's intelligence division. His team worked tirelessly to decode the encrypted transmissions between alien vessels. Admiral Hayes stared at the tactical display. "Are they waiting for reinforcements?" "I think they're waiting for orders," Commander Fuller replied through the video link from the captured flagship. Voshkal hinted they've never faced this situation before. No species has ever captured one of their ships. On the screen, the Draconid commander sat in the background, restrained but watching the humans with unblinking vertical pupils. Professor Miller's console beeped. "Sir, we've intercepted and decoded a transmission from outside our solar system. It appears to be from their high command." Everyone fell silent as the translated message appeared on screen. "Hold position. Punishment fleet dispatched. Arrival. Estimated 27 Earth hours." Admiral Hayes turned to the room of officers and scientists. "Then we have 27 hours to prepare for round 2, and this time they won't underestimate us." At the lunar shipyards, hidden from Draconid sensors on the far side of the moon, Captain Samantha Reed supervised the final preparations of Earth's first true warship. The Defiance had been under construction since the first Draconid visit, built using reverse-engineered alien technology. "Chief Cooper," she called out to her head engineer, "what's the status on the shield harmonics?" Ryan Cooper emerged from an access panel, wiping grease from his hands. "Integrated and operational, Captain. Dr. Nichols's frequency modulator is working perfectly. Our shields will cycle exactly out of phase with their weapons." Samantha nodded. And the Trojan devices? 200 ready for deployment, Cooper confirmed. Each one designed to latch onto a Draconid hull and corrupt their systems from the inside. The Defiance wasn't large by Draconid standards, barely 1/5 the size of their smaller cruisers, but it represented humanity's greatest technological achievement. Built in secret during the 30-day ultimatum period, it incorporated everything Earth had learned about alien technology. Back on Earth, Admiral Hayes received reports from defense installations worldwide. Every nation had converted military and civilian resources into unconventional weapons using Parker's designs. Thousands of pilots had been trained in Bishop's evasive tactics. The remaining Draconid observation ships are pulling back to a higher orbit, a sensor operator reported. They appear to be forming a defensive perimeter. They're preparing for their reinforcements, Hayes noted, and giving us more breathing room. Perfect. 25 hours later, alarms blared across Earth's defense network. Massive energy signatures appeared at the edge of the solar system. 57 ships, the sensor operator announced, voice tight with tension, much bigger than the first fleet. On the main screen, new Draconid vessels emerged from faster-than-light travel. At their center was an enormous ship that dwarfed even the previous command vessel. "That's High Commander Drelvex's dreadnought," said Voshikal, speaking for the first time in hours. The captured commander had been brought to Earth's control center for questioning. A smile played across his reptilian face. "You have no hope now. The punishment fleet has never failed to exterminate a species." Admiral Hayes ignored him. "Deploy. All units. Execute Operation Firestorm." Across Earth, thousands of aircraft launched simultaneously. From the lunar shipyard, the Defiance powered up its engines. And from hidden positions throughout the solar system, mines and automated drones activated. High Commander Drelvex stood on the bridge of his massive dreadnought, watching the tactical displays with confidence. The previous commander's failure was unfortunate but not surprising. Voshkal had always been too relaxed in his approach. "The humans have launched primitive aircraft," his tactical officer reported, "and there appears to be a single vessel emerging from behind their moon." "One ship?" Drelvex laughed, the sound like rocks grinding together. "They think they can challenge the Imperium with a single vessel? It appears to incorporate some of our technology, High Commander. Stolen scraps, nothing more. Deploy the fleet in standard extinction formation. We will methodically destroy their military installations, then their population centers until they surrender." The Draconid ships moved into their usual attack pattern, a perfect geometric arrangement that had brought down civilizations across the galaxy. They began their advance toward Earth. But something was wrong. Their sensors couldn't lock on to the tiny human aircraft, which flew in chaotic, seemingly random patterns. Targeting computers designed for predictable flight paths struggled to adjust, and the single human warship was behaving strangely too. Instead of engaging directly, it launched hundreds of small objects toward the Draconid fleet. "What are those?" Drelvex demanded. "Unknown, High Commander. They appear to be attaching to our hulls." Suddenly, alarms blared across the Draconid fleet. Ship after ship reported system failures, communication breakdowns, and shield malfunctions. The Trojan devices designed by Chief Cooper had bypassed their external defenses and were corrupting their computer systems from inside. "Impossible!" Drelvex roared. "No primitive species could—" His words were cut short as Earth's seemingly disorganized aircraft suddenly formed into attack groups. They targeted the now vulnerable Draconid vessels with missiles specifically designed to exploit the shield frequency weakness Dr. Nichols had discovered. On the bridge of the Defiance, Captain Reed watched the battle unfold. "All units focus fire on their secondary ships. Leave the dreadnought to us." The Defiance accelerated toward Drelvex's massive vessel. Despite the success of their initial attack, Reed knew the battle was far from won. The dreadnought alone had enough firepower to devastate Earth. "They're targeting us, Captain," her tactical officer warned. "Activate shield harmonics," Reed ordered. "Bring us in close, they won't expect that." The Defiance took hit after hit, but its shields held as they cycled through frequencies that rendered Draconid weapons partially ineffective. The human ship slipped through the enemy formation and positioned itself directly under the dreadnought's main weapons array. All power to forward batteries, Reed commanded. Target their central power core. The Defiance fired everything it had at the dreadnought's vulnerable underbelly. The massive alien ship shuddered as explosions rippled along its hull, but the dreadnought was turning, bringing its main planet killer weapon to bear on Earth. "They're charging their primary weapon," the sensor officer shouted. Captain Reed looked at her crew. They all knew what had to be done. "Set collision course," she ordered quietly. "Maximum speed." The Defiance accelerated directly toward the charging weapon port of the dreadnought. Chief Cooper overrode the safety protocols on the ship's power core. "It's been an honor," Reed said to her crew. The human vessel slammed into the dreadnought's main weapon at the exact moment the alien ship fired. The resulting explosion tore the massive vessel in half, creating a chain reaction that spread throughout its systems. From Earth's command center, Admiral Hayes watched as the dreadnought broke apart in a blinding flash of light. The Defiance and all aboard her were gone. But they had saved their world. The remaining Draconid ships, damaged and in disarray, began to retreat. Earth forces pressed their advantage, capturing several vessels intact, including one containing a stunned and furious High Commander Drelvex. When the last enemy ship had fled or been captured, Admiral Hayes turned to the prisoner Voshkal. The Draconid commander no longer looked smug. Instead, his scales had paled to a sickly gray. "How?" Voshkal whispered. "No species has ever." "You made a fundamental mistake," Professor Miller explained. "You judged us by our technology, not by our nature. Humans don't surrender when backed into a corner. We get creative." Hayes nodded. "And now we have your faster-than-light drives, your shield technology, and your weapons, plus a new understanding of the galaxy." He leaned closer to the alien. "Tell your Imperium, the galaxy just changed." Far above, stars twinkled in the night sky, no longer distant and unreachable, but the next battlefield in humanity's unexpected war. 6 months passed since Earth's victory over the Draconid punishment fleet. The captured alien vessels provided humanity with technology beyond their wildest dreams. Engineers and scientists worked day and night to understand and replicate the advanced systems. In the central war room beneath the Rocky Mountains, General Daniel Wright stood before the New Earth Defense Council. Maps and holographic displays showed star systems throughout the galaxy, many marked with the red symbol of the Draconid Imperium. "The time for merely defending ourselves is over," General Wright said. His weathered face was serious, his eyes reflecting the losses Earth had already suffered. "Our scouts have confirmed that the Draconids are gathering forces for another attack, but this time they are bringing everything they have." Admiral Hayes, now the head of the unified Earth forces, nodded grimly. "How long do we have?" 3 months at most, Wright replied. "But I'm not proposing we wait for them to come to us. I suggest we take the fight to them." Murmurs spread through the room. The idea of launching an offensive against an empire that controlled 1,000 worlds seemed impossible, even with their recent victories. Dr. Laura Chen, a specialist in alien psychology who had spent months studying the captured Draconids, stepped forward. "The Imperium has never been challenged before our resistance. Their society is built on absolute dominance. If we strike at key targets, rather than trying to match their full military might, we can shake their confidence and possibly force negotiations." Commander Jason Wells, who led the Special Forces teams that had captured several Draconid vessels intact, pointed to a specific star system on the display. "Our intelligence shows this system contains one of their slave worlds. The inhabitants are called the Solari. They've been under Draconid control for over a century but haven't been fully integrated into their empire." High Commander Drelvex, now a prisoner, had provided valuable information under questioning. The Draconids kept tight control over their subject species, using them for labor and resources while preventing them from developing technology that might threaten the empire. "We propose a liberation mission," General Wright continued. "A small fleet to free the Solari and demonstrate to other subjugated species that resistance is possible. This could turn the Draconids' own empire against them." 2 weeks later, humanity's first offensive fleet departed the solar system. 6 Earth warships, built with reverse-engineered alien technology and commanded by General Wright, formed the core of the battle group. Commander Wells led a smaller stealth vessel that would deploy special forces to the surface of the Solari homeworld. The journey took 3 weeks using the captured faster-than-light drives. When they arrived at the edge of the Solari system, sensors detected minimal Draconid presence, just one orbiting control ship and a few automated defense platforms. "They're not expecting any threat here," Commander Wells noted from the bridge of his stealth ship. "Their arrogance works in our favor again." General Wright's voice came through the comm system. "Remember, this isn't just about freeing one world. This is about sending a message to every species under Draconid control." The Earth fleet moved into the system, quickly neutralizing the defense platforms before they could send warnings. The single Draconid control ship barely had time to raise shields before Earth forces surrounded it. "Draconid vessel, General Wright broadcast. This is General Daniel Wright of Earth. Surrender your ship or be destroyed." The Draconid commander responded with threats and refused to surrender. The battle was brief. Earth ships used the shield frequency vulnerabilities, discovered by Dr. Nichols, to bypass the alien defenses. Within minutes, the control ship was disabled and boarded by Commander Wells' special forces. On the surface of the Solari homeworld, the alien population watched in disbelief as the Draconid ship that had dominated their skies for generations went dark. When human shuttles began landing in major cities, panic spread. The Solari were humanoid, but with pale blue skin and large, expressive eyes. They had lived under Draconid rule for so long that most had no memory of freedom. They hid in their homes as Earth forces secured the main government buildings and communication centers. Commander Wells found the central square of the largest city empty, except for Draconid enforcers, who were quickly neutralized. He ordered his team to set up loudspeakers. "People of Solari," he announced, his words translated by Dr. Martinez's linguistic algorithms. "We are humans from the planet Earth. We have come to free you from Draconid control. We are not your new masters. We offer alliance against our common enemy." Slowly, curious Solari began to emerge from hiding. An older female with ornate markings on her face approached Commander Wells. "I am Kalara," she said through her own translator. "I lead what remains of our resistance. We thought we were alone, in fighting the Imperium." "Not anymore," Wells replied, offering his hand in friendship. Over the next few days, more Solari joined the resistance. Kalara explained that the Draconids had suppressed their culture and forced them to work in mines, extracting rare minerals. When Earth forces opened the Draconid records, they discovered dozens of other species in similar situations across the Empire. In orbit, General Wright received a transmission from Earth. Dr. Chen's face appeared on the screen. "General, we've analyzed the data from the captured control ship. The Draconids rule through fear, not loyalty. Their subject species outnumber them greatly, but each world believes it stands alone." "Not for long," Wright replied. "Have our communications team prepare a galaxy-wide broadcast using the Draconid emergency channels. 3 days later, every communication device on every subjugated world received the same message. Images of the liberated Solari standing alongside humans, the defeated Draconid enforcers, and an offer of alliance against the Imperium." "For too long you have been told to kneel," General Wright's voice announced across 1,000 worlds. "Earth refused, and now we stand tall. The Solari have joined us. You are not alone. The time has come to rise up against your oppressors." The effect was immediate. Reports flooded in of uprisings on dozens of worlds. The Draconid Empire, which had spent centuries conquering and subjugating other species, suddenly faced rebellion on multiple fronts. On the Solari homeworld, Kalara watched as her people demolished the statues of their Draconid overlords. She turned to Commander Wells. "Will your people really help us fight?" she asked. "The Imperium will return with greater forces." "We know," Wells said. "That's why we need allies, not subjects. Earth has a different vision for the galaxy, one where species help each other instead of conquering each other." As the Earth fleet prepared to return home with representatives from the Solari government, General Wright received an urgent communication from Admiral Hayes. The Draconids have launched their attack fleet early, Hayes reported. They're coming, for Earth with everything they have. Our defensive preparations aren't complete. Wright's expression remained calm despite the grave news. We're on our way back with allies and information about other potential resistance forces. This war is just beginning, Admiral. Across the galaxy, the Draconid Imperium faced something it had never encountered in its long history of conquest: coordinated resistance from multiple species. Their perfectly ordered empire began to show the first cracks of collapse. And leading, the rebellion was the species they had dismissed as primitive just months before. Humans who had not only refused to kneel, but were now teaching others to stand. 1 year had passed since Earth's first contact with the Draconid Imperium. What began as an ultimatum to kneel had transformed into a galactic revolution. The war room of the newly commissioned space station Freedom buzzed with activity as representatives from 27 formerly enslaved species gathered around the central planning table. President Michelle Davis, the elected leader of Earth's unified government, stood at the head of the assembly. Her calm presence had guided humanity through its darkest days. The Draconid Imperium is vulnerable for the first time in its history, she said. Our combined intelligence reports confirm that rebellions have spread to over 200 systems. Their military forces are stretched thin, trying to maintain control. Admiral Eric Fuller, promoted after Commander Fuller's leadership during the first conflict, pointed to the holographic display showing the 7 core worlds of the Draconid Imperium. For centuries, the Draconids have kept their home systems isolated and heavily defended. No enemy has ever reached their central planets. Kalara, now the ambassador of the Free Solari people, nodded in agreement. The 7 worlds are sacred to them. They believe themselves untouchable there. The past year had been difficult. The Draconid counterattack against Earth had been fierce, but the expanding alliance of liberated species had helped defend humanity's homeworld. Each victory brought more allies to their cause. Each freed planet provided new resources and fighters motivated by centuries of oppression. Master strategist Olivia Martinez, who had been promoted from her role as xenobiologist, stepped forward. Her understanding of alien psychology and communication had become essential to coordinating the diverse allied species. The Draconids rule through fear, she explained. Their entire empire is built on the belief that resistance is futile, but now that belief is crumbling. Our sources say Emperor Kreshitar has recalled their main fleets to protect the core worlds. Then that's where we must strike, Admiral Fuller said. Not just at one world, but all 7 simultaneously. The alien representatives looked shocked. Even after a year of successful rebellion, the idea of attacking the sacred heart of the Empire seemed impossible. We cannot match their numbers, said the representative of the insectoid Shiktari. Their home defense fleet has thousands of warships. We don't need to match their numbers, Admiral Fuller replied with a confident smile. We just need to be where they don't expect us. For the next month, the Allied forces prepared for their boldest move yet. Using technology adapted from multiple species, they developed new weapons and tactics. The plan was unlike anything the Draconids would anticipate. On the imperial capital world of Prime Dracos, Emperor Kreshitar addressed his High Council. His black scales gleamed in the light of 3 suns that shone through the crystal dome above. "Then human infection spreads," he hissed angrily. "They have turned our subject races against us. This cannot stand." High General Zexicon bowed low. "My Emperor, our forces are regaining control in the outer systems. The rebels are fierce but disorganized. They cannot threaten the sacred 7 worlds. You underestimate these humans," the Emperor growled. "They have done what no species has accomplished in 10,000 years. They refused to kneel and now they teach others the same defiance." A junior officer rushed into the chamber, breaking sacred protocol. "Forgive me, Exalted. 20s. Our sensors detect anomalies approaching all 7 core worlds simultaneously." The Emperor rose to his full height. "Impossible. No force could breach our defenses." But the impossible was happening. Above each of the 7 Draconid homeworlds, Space itself seemed to tear open as hundreds of ships emerged from modified jump points much closer than standard faster-than-light technology should allow. The Allied fleet had combined human ingenuity with technology from a dozen liberated worlds to create a new form of faster-than-light travel that bypassed the traditional defense networks. On the bridge of Earth's flagship Defiance II, named in honor of Captain Reed's sacrifice, Admiral Fuller watched as his forces emerged directly above the Draconid capital. "All ships commence Operation Lightbringer," he ordered. The battle was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The Allied fleet, though outnumbered, had the advantage of surprise and position. Ships from Earth fought alongside vessels from worlds that had suffered under Draconid rule for centuries, but the Draconids defended their homeworlds with desperate fury. The fighting was brutal and losses were heavy on both sides. On the surface of Prime Dracos, Emperor Kreshtar ordered the activation of planetary defense systems that would destroy millions of his own citizens, along with the invaders. His generals hesitated, showing the first cracks in unwavering Draconid loyalty. "Obey!" the Emperor roared. "We cannot be defeated. We are the rightful rulers of the galaxy." Above the planet, the Defiance II took heavy damage as it engaged the Imperial flagship. Admiral Fuller held onto his command chair as explosions rocked the ship. "Status report," he called out. "Shields at 30%, his tactical officer reported. "But we've created the opening for the landing teams." Throughout the ship and across the fleet, the faces of the crew showed grim determination. They had not started this war, but they would finish it. On the surface, specially trained teams led by Commander Wells secured key locations. Unlike the Draconids, who would have simply destroyed the planet rather than accept defeat, the human-led forces targeted only military installations and government centers. The fighting lasted 3 days across all 7 worlds. When it ended, the unthinkable had happened. The Allied forces controlled the sacred heart of the Draconid Imperium. Emperor Kreshtar was brought before President Davis and the representatives of the free worlds in his own imperial palace. The once mighty ruler's scales had dulled and his proud posture was bent in defeat. "You have 2 choices," President Davis told him, deliberately echoing the ultimatum the Draconids had given Earth. "Surrender unconditionally and help dismantle your empire peacefully, or watch as we systematically free every world under your control by force." The Emperor glared at her with hatred. "You would destroy our civilization? Burn our worlds to ash in revenge?" Admiral Fuller stepped forward. "Unlike you, we don't destroy civilizations. We free them." "Your empire is already falling, Master," strategist Martinez added. "You rule through fear, but fear only works when people believe they have no choice. We've shown them another way." Kalara approached the Emperor, standing tall before the being her people had been taught to worship as a god. "For centuries you told us to kneel, but humans showed us how to stand." The Emperor looked around at the representatives of species his people had conquered and enslaved. Then he looked at the humans who had accomplished the impossible in just 1 year. "What do you want?" he asked finally. "Peace," President Davis said simply. "But on equal terms. The age of the Draconid Imperium is over. The age of the Galactic Alliance begins today." One by one, the Draconid worlds surrendered. The empire that had stood for thousands of years collapsed in days once its central authority was broken. Species that had been separated and prevented from communicating with each other discovered they were not alone in their suffering or in their hope. 6 months later, representatives from over 100 worlds gathered on Earth to sign the charter of the new Galactic Alliance. President Davis looked out at the assembled delegates, beings of all shapes, sizes, and evolutionary paths united by their desire for freedom and cooperation. "A year and a half ago, an alien empire came to our world and told humanity to kneel," she said in her address. "They believed, as they had with so many species before us, that we would choose submission over extinction. They were wrong." She gestured to the diverse gathering. "But our victory is not about conquest. It's about showing the galaxy a different path. One where species help each other grow rather than subjugate one another." Admiral Fuller, standing nearby, spoke quietly to Master Strategist Martinez. "Did you ever imagine this when they first appeared over Earth?" Martinez smiled. That humanity would refuse to kneel and end up reshaping the galaxy? No, but I'm glad we did. As the charter was signed, a new era began. The species of the galaxy looked to the stars not with fear but with hope. And at the center of this new alliance stood the humans, not as conquerors, but as liberators who had shown that even the mightiest empire could fall when faced with the unbreakable spirit of those who refused to surrender their freedom.